Perfect. I think Brandon just joined you. Hey, Brandon.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. We're on live in New York.
Awesome.
With the Numerai crowd. Great to see everyone. Should we get started?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, just thank you very much for coordinating and having us here. Both Brandon and I are co-founders of a project called AI Arena. So it's a great feeling to be able to kind of tell the story to the Numerai community. Given that we have known Numerai for quite a bit of time, I think Richard and myself and Brandon, we've known Richard for quite a while now. In fact, in our previous careers, we worked for a large institutional investor in Canada, and we were kind of one of the first institutional pools of capital to actually discover Numerai, but also had a lot of conversations with Richard and learning about the entire kind of meta model and the competition, and ultimately made an investment. I think it was perhaps last year. So there's definitely strong ties between us and the Numerai family, and it's always it's great to have the opportunity to speak to you all. So I think, Joe, I just want to do a quick time check. How much time do we have?
3 hours, if you wanted.
All right. I won't take 3 hours, because I'm sure I'm standing in the way between maybe cocktail hours or something like that. But I do want to take the opportunity to kind of tell you guys a bit more about AI Arena. And Brandon and I are here to kind of give you a high-level walkthrough of the project. And let's definitely make this kind of an interactive dialogue. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. This is a very important stakeholder group in terms of AI and ML researchers that we want to onboard into our game over time. And we'll kind of unpack that story for you and hopefully see you in our community and potentially participating in some of the upcoming kind of playtests for the game. So maybe I'll take a brief minute to describe AI Arena at a high level, and then Brandon, I think, is much better placed to speak to the technical details, particularly as it pertains to ML researchers and how you guys can onboard into the game and also the community. So at a high level, Brandon and I co-founded a company called Arena X Labs. We're basically building gaming on Ethereum with AI embedded into these characters. Our first title is called AI Arena. The gameplay, you can think about it as kind of Super Smash. It's a platform fighting game. We are kind of wrapping neural networks into NFTs. And the objective of the game is for the human to train these NFTs so that it starts to improve in terms of its skills in playing the game. And then once you are quite comfortable or confident in your NFT's abilities, you can send it off into battle in the arena against these neural networks that other people have trained. So that's the core kind of game model. What I just described is what we call the gaming competition. And you can think about the gaming competition as a kind of a no-code version of the game. It is really designed to appeal to a very large audience of gamers, where they don't really need to have any kind of background in ML or AI. They can basically just pick up the game, engage with it through kind of our game UI, and pick up on the gameplay and start to progress and building that intuition for the gameplay over time. In addition to the gaming competition, there is a parallel competition, which we call the researcher competition. And this is the one that is really focused in targeting the machine learning researcher crowd. In some ways, we think of ourselves as kind of a progression through the lineage of things like Kaggle and Numerai. And this is really a ML-based competition. You're able to design your own models and basically just upload those models onto our platform. But the key differentiation here is that we have a gaming front end where you can actually watch your models perform and battle other models through this very fun and exciting kind of Smash-esque type of game. And we think that that really adds another kind of dimensionality to the experience of these competitions. So in the researcher competition, we are really targeting kind of ML researchers and engineers. And yeah, I would say we tested out an early version of this over the summer, got some really great feedback, and I think we built that conviction that this is a very compelling and interesting competition for people to participate in. And Brandon can talk a lot more about it in more detail, but at a high level, what I wanted to kind of articulate here is like there's really kind of two separate competitions. One is geared specifically towards ML researchers, and the other one is more kind of trying to create that broad appeal to the gamer demographic. And the reason why we have both sides of these competitions is that what we intend to do over time is actually create a linkage between the two, where the researcher competition is actually going to be the source of new AI or machine learning models that can be potentially used in the gaming competition. And by doing that, what we're creating is basically a marketplace for AI. And as a researcher in the future, you may be actually able to design better and better learning models and then actually sell those models into the gaming competition because there's natural demand coming from the gamers who want better and better model architectures to continue to propel them in the gaming competition. So part of the overarching kind of desire here is we kind of want to create a new avenue for ML researchers to monetize directly, very much in the same spirit that Numerai is trying to do that through this competition. So I think in spirit and philosophically, there's obviously a lot of alignment between what we're doing and what Numerai has done. And in fact, I would go as far as saying like Numerai was, it was a pretty material kind of inspiration in terms of a lot of what we were conceiving of and designing with Numerai. So just wanted to kind of lead off with that. Brandon, do you want to add anything specifically for this audience? Because I know it's mostly kind of, definitely almost everyone here is kind of machine learning researchers. So any color you want to add to that intro?
Sure. I think that's a great intro. I feel like most of it will probably take through Q&A, but I will add that there is a distinction in the types of models that are being used in both competitions. So on the gaming side, we're using imitation learning, and the whole idea there is that the user kind of plays the game, and then these neural networks are learning how to play like the user. On the researcher competition, technically you can use any type of model you want, but most people will use reinforcement learning type models to train their AI. Of course, you can get more creative than that. You can design some rules-based agents and use supervised learning to learn the policy essentially of this rules-based agent. The only limit here is that the model has to be basically a neural network that outputs some policy. So I just wanted to add that specific color. And additionally, on the point of sort of the models kind of coming from the researcher competition to the gaming competition, it's important to note that we don't do reinforcement learning on the gaming side. We do want it to be a function of your ability to basically teach this AI how to play via gameplay. And so if you just have a really good RL model on the researcher side, you won't necessarily be able to sub it into the gaming side. We might have sort of a separate type of competition for you to basically showcase how good you design something to do imitation learning, and that's what's being sold on the gaming side. So just wanted to add that specific color there.
So maybe one other thing to add, there is going to be a monetization component to this, and I think it'll be very familiar to people, to all of you guys, because you participated in Numerai. There will be a kind of an in-game token, if you want to call it that, that is used as kind of an incentive for people to compete in this competition. There's going to be a similar kind of staking type of mechanism, which it is used to kind of align the conviction that an individual has in their model and its potential performance. So that there's definitely going to be that aspect or element to the project, which again I think is probably very, very intuitive and familiar to this particular audience. So maybe I'll pause here. I don't know if there's any questions from the floor at this point.
Any questions? No. You go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know where else to kind of keep going down this rabbit hole. But Brandon, is there anything else that you really kind of want to feature and highlight for the audience here? Maybe kind of like focusing a bit on like, I think you started by describing like the key differentiations here in terms of like the competition aspect and how it's different than potentially Numerai or Kaggle or any of the predecessors. But is there anything that maybe you want to elaborate there?
Sure. Happy to. I guess it's probably most, well, I can talk about the difference between Kaggle, Numerai, and what we're trying to do. I'm sure, I mean, everyone here is very familiar with the Numerai model, so I guess one differentiator is that for us, like for Numerai, you upload your predictions, right? For us, you are actually uploading the model so that we're able to basically take your model and battle it against other people's models. Now, for the research competition, obviously, we're going to want to secure your model, right? You don't want other people having access to your model because then they'll just copy it. So what we do is at the time of upload, we ask the users to encrypt their model, and we're going to basically store the encrypted model in our database. We're going to decrypt it at the time of running the battle. And yeah, so your model is going to be sort of completely secure. And that's kind of the flow there. In terms of the experience, so in my past life, so I used to do research. I used to build trading strategies using ML at the previous fund that I was at. And I always found myself kind of building reinforcement learning models for games on my spare time because I just found it more fun. And I would sort of like try and compete in like Kaggle and Numerai, and I did reasonably well, but I never got the satisfaction that I got when I would train like an RO agent to play Mario, for example, and then I saw it doing what it was doing. And a few years ago, I also competed in Hallett. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's this competition that 2 Sigma puts on where you train these bots, or you can even use sort of like a rules-based agent, and you upload it, and the agents compete against each other in this like little game that they created. And that was sort of like super satisfying for me. There's something about sort of creating a model and watching it do like essentially what it learned, as opposed to just getting sort of some accuracy metric. I've always like loved that, and so that's sort of the other dimension that I wanted to bring into the competitive ML space, where people can create these agents and actually watch their agents perform, as opposed to just getting some metrics sort of at the end of the week that's saying you're up or down this percent. With that said, I used to be a quant, so I still love that stuff, but I think it's a different level of satisfaction when you actually see this thing like playing a game. So I just wanted to add that specific color. That's why we're kind of going down this route. I feel like researchers need more venues to monetize, and I feel like we're building one of the most fun ways for them to do so.
Maybe Brandon, can you maybe take us through the process of how someone would onboard into AI Arena on the researcher side, and also maybe touch on the inspector, because I think that's another aspect of the experience that's really kind of fun and novel and different. Brandon, if you're talking, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you. I was talking. So in terms of the experience to onboard, we have a Python package, which is very akin to like an OpenAI gym, where you can basically pull in our gym environment into Python, create your model, put the model in the environment, and ours is a little different than most OpenAI environments, because most OpenAI environments, you kind of just need one model, and then you're kind of interacting with the environment, but here you're interacting with an opponent. So you would need to create 2 separate models. Of course, in the future, we can probably just augment this by having a few presets that you can battle against, but if you want, you can also make it bespoke and battle against a specific opponent. So that's basically, you just kind of hit install our package, load in the environment, create your model, and then you can design your own sort of simulation loop and your own sort of training algorithm. You can really get as creative as possible. But the only constraint is that at the end of the day, when we upload the model to our site, it has to be a neural network with certain, it has to have some certain sort of like configuration. And we also create functions to auto-configure everything so it's ready to upload. We do this for a few popular packages like TensorFlow, PyTorch, and Peak, etc. And we're planning on getting support for more and more packages going forward. And that's basically the process. And then once it's all configured, you drag and drop it onto our platform. The one thing is you have to have sort of an Ethereum-based wallet, but I'm guessing most of you already do. So you have to have an Ethereum-based wallet, drag it over, just sort of sign a transaction, and then it's all uploaded and ready to battle. And then in terms of the inspector, so this is one of the things that I absolutely love, especially because when I was doing reinforcement learning research in the past, I didn't really have tools like this to truly see how my model, to truly understand my model essentially. What I would do is just, you have some sort of like graphs, you have some metrics that you can track, or you can just watch it play the game, right? But all of that isn't really too comprehensive. Especially with like certain edge cases, and that I wanted to kind of see how my agents would do in all these edge cases. And so what I did for this app was I built out what I call the AI inspector, where you can basically dive into the environment and toggle every single possible aspect of the state. And so you can see basically what your AI will do in every possible scenario. And this was absolutely massive for me and for everyone that was actually playing the game, because even people that didn't have ML experience, they were able to train their models off into the inspector and kind of see how it did in every possible scenario, and then they knew where to focus their training on going forward, because they said, okay, it's doing this really weird thing when this happens, and that's not what I want to happen. They hop back into training, and they fine-tune it, and now it learns how to basically do what they wanted in that specific situation. That's of course for the gaming side. You can do the exact same thing for the researcher side, right? Where you train it with some algorithm, you drag it onto the platform, hop into the inspector, and then you can evaluate the policy. And then you can see, okay, it got caught in this really weird local optimum, and this is what's happening. Let me go back into Python. Let me maybe adjust some stuff with how I train the model, maybe adjust my loss function, and then let's see if it fixes it, drag it back on, and then you can kind of iterate in this manner, and you can really holistically analyze your policy in a way that I haven't seen tools to be able to do this before. So I mean, I'm insanely pumped about this. I get so excited when I'm using the inspector, and the inspector is actually not just about evaluating the policy in every state, but you can actually create your own environments there, and you can sort of, specifically for our game, for example, you can move stages around, you can add stages, remove stages, you can literally build your own environment and see how your agent will do in every scenario. And this is very important for creating agents that generalize well, because we're going to have a lot of different types of environments that you can battle in. And so perhaps you were overfitting to a very specific environment in Python, and then you drag and drop it onto the platform. It looks like it's doing really well. But what happens if you maybe remove one of the platforms, like 1 or 5 platforms, and everything goes out of whack because you clearly overfit it to this very specific environment. So yeah, we give you the ability to do that, and then soon, this is still work in progress, but we're trying to create a robust way to do feature attribution. There's a lot of the classic methods, like line, shaft, and stuff like that. But we're kind of evaluating what's the best approach, and we want to also show people why their neural network is doing the action that it's doing in this state. So yeah, we're super pumped about the inspector. We just think it'll level up everybody's modeling. I know I was rambling for a while. I'll pause for a second.
Happy to take any questions if there are any from the crowd.
No questions? No question yet.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is it at a high level. I think maybe you can talk about like what to expect with how we're going to be rolling out the game. So as we described, there's kind of these two parallel competitions. There's the gaming competition and the researcher competition. We've been working on both sides behind the scenes for a while. We've tested both platforms in terms of like the core tech stack. We actually ran a brief beta test of the researcher platform over the summer. However, that was integrated with the old version of the game, which was a kind of a 2D environment where it's more of a kind of a Street Fighter style type of game where it's health bar based. We've since moved the game towards 3D character assets, rebased it onto a platform fighter, and that will kind of give us the ability to expand the kind of the discovery space for these AIs, and we think that there's going to be a lot more interesting policies that result from this. So we're really excited for that. So there's still some work to be done on the researcher platform in order for us to integrate that into this new version of the game. So that is still something that's TBD. However, we're about to basically progress into kind of a launch phase for the gaming competition, where this is really trying to reach a large gamer audience. Our target is to start these beta tests with a public kind of community in November. And all of these beta tests will be competitions themselves, where there will be prizes. Principally are allocations of our NFTs. So the way to earn our NFTs is to participate in one of these playtests. And if you basically finish in something like the top 50th percentile, you can earn into a free mint of these NFTs. These NFTs are going to be in very limited supply to start. As we bootstrap the network, we believe that they'll probably, it is, I think, reasonable confidence to say that these NFTs will accrue value through this competition, given their ability to earn the native token that we would disperse as rewards. So unlike many other kind of NFT projects out there, there's no clear utility in terms of what the NFT is doing. I think in our case, it's very much the kind of the pursuit of the competition and people's desire to continue to push their AI's performance will result in this kind of underlying energy that pushes up the level of competition, and all of that is kind of getting captured through this tournament and this evergreen competition that different NFTs are being ranked on this leaderboard, and you're trying to climb that leaderboard. So in order to kind of earn into those NFTs at the mint, you have to participate in one of these little playtests. And we have run these a couple of times already. They're really fun and engaging. We put people into teams, and there will be kind of individual champions as well as team champions. And these different formats create different social dynamics that are actually really fun. And being in a team construct, you're able to kind of learn from other people in terms of how they play the game. And it really kind of supercharges the learning in terms of the gameplay. And we have the experience from our past playtests where people are getting extremely excited about the progress their AI has been making through as a function of their training, and we've been quite surprised at some of the kind of the policies that have resulted. And there's honestly moments where we're kind of like shocked that the AI did a certain thing, where it's in fact a bit counterintuitive, because like a human probably would not have made those decisions, but AI did, and in fact it actually worked out. that end resulted in a victory for it. So those are kind of really fun and magical moments for us, and really gives us the confidence that this game is really going to capture the attention of the Web3 gaming space. And in fact, I think even in Web2, we just don't think there's anything like this out there on the market. So we're getting really close to that launch. We're excited about it. I would highlight that there's an enormous opportunity for people in this room to participate. I think sometimes researchers may be a little bit reluctant to potentially participate on the gaming side, but what you guys bring to the table is actually really important for a few reasons. Number one, because a lot of this is going to be team-based, your kind of ML background is going to be a very important asset for that team to break through certain plateaus. Because in the early stages of learning this game, kind of gaming intuition is very important. So because it's very easy to pick up, everyone can kind of get up the initial curve reasonably well. But in order to really progress and continue to push your character forward, at some point you need to inject a level of understanding or intuition around how machine learning models actually work. And this is where, being an ML researcher, you can really add that dimensionality to your team. And also they do see that this is going to be a competition where it's going to converge into kind of team play as opposed to like individuals actually playing the game. Because you just need to bring a lot of different types of skill sets to the table, one of which is the ML kind of research skill set. So highly encourage some of you guys, like if you're interested in it, definitely join our Discord, join our community, and participate in one of these betas. Like we have some ML engineers or researchers already in our community. They had a blast playing the game before, but we would definitely like more of you guys to come in and try it out. And like I said, you guys are going to be a really differentiated type of asset for these teams when we get into these mini competitions. And they will be incentivized. You'll be earning rewards if your team finishes as well. So that's one area that's really kind of exciting. The other area that I want to highlight is the philosophy behind what we're building. It's actually beyond gaming. We already talked about the monetization channel. So I think one of our core tenets of why we're doing this is to create new avenues for people like you to directly monetize their IP without having to, necessarily do it through like employment, right? Like there's ancillary or additional ways of actually monetizing your content that you're creating in terms of like intellectual property. And we want to create an avenue where potentially we're tapping into a massive market, right? Because as you can imagine, like if this game starts to get a lot of traction, gaming reaches audiences in the magnitude of like millions of people. I mean, even if we hit like 100,000 daily active users, this network effect of what's going on within the token as well as the NFTs, some of the valuations here could be staggering. I would stop to say, like, I don't want to prognosticate and say what that could be like, but as you guys have participated in Numerai, you know that being a top-ranked model is kind of financially attractive, which is why it brings you guys back to competing in the tournament. Now, I think where we really start to differentiate is that if we tap this consumer market in gaming, those numbers are staggering. When you start to reach into the millions of people, the economics and the flywheel that it creates means that the assets that are participating in this economy can reach some really incredible levels in terms of value. So that's kind of monetization is one channel. The other channel is really education. And what we're trying to do with the gaming competition is actually wrapping up AI education through a delivery mechanism of a game. And the reason why we're doing that is because gaming is an engagement tool. It makes learning easier, it makes learning more enjoyable, and in fact, it makes the learning experience more effective. So part of the progress or the progression of someone playing the game without any ML intuition or background is they are in fact learning about AI right now, without necessarily knowing that they're learning about it. So what this also creates is an opportunity for people who do have ML experience to create content, because there is now a gap and demand in that market for the knowledge that you guys have. So not only is the monetization through the competition, and also through potentially the ability to sell your IP directly into the game, but it's also potentially through the education that you can bring to the fold, because there's going to be commensurate demand on the gaming side for that education. So, I think a lot, if you're interested in this kind of community, and you're also interested or potentially thinking about content creation, or you may have thought like, look, I would love to teach people about ML and AI. If you needed that kind of conduit or a teaching tool, it's hard for me to imagine a better way of teaching something through games. And I think this is where we're hoping that the researcher community will come in and really kind of just start creating that content that's going to propel people on the gaming side, because there's going to be demand for that. And there's going to be other ways that you can monetize your skill sets within this economy, within this ecosystem that we're building. So I think that's kind of like my call to action, is that, you may feel like, well, I'll perhaps like wait for the researcher competition to be done and join that site, because that's something that I'm familiar with. But I think if you're really interested in the project, definitely get involved early and try out the gaming competition, because one, you'll bring a different perspective and skill set to the table, and two, it may just launch your ability to kind of start content creation and explore different avenues of monetization within our ecosystem that I think will be actually a lot of fun and very rewarding. So I'll pause here. Brandon, feel free to add anything that comes to mind for you. Sorry, Brandon, are you speaking? Hey, Joe, are you able to still hear us?
We're still here.
Okay. I'm not sure if Brandon was speaking. I know his mic notification, he toggled it, but I couldn't hear anything from him. Oh, yeah, I think he had to reset. And happy to take any questions if there is any.
Is the reward in the NFT or the token itself? Is there like a burning mechanism or what?
Oh, is the reward the NFT or the token itself? So the main conduit of reward is going to be the token. However, there is also a transmission mechanism where it allows you to potentially earn a new NFT as well. There's an importance in terms of not creating a mechanism where we're hyperinflating the number of NFTs. Usually that's a precursor to economic collapse, and we've seen that in play-to-earn games in the past cycle. So the supply is controlled on the NFT side, and that's very important because we need to have control over the supply.
Couldn't you just put a burn mechanism in there instead? Like maybe for like a losing person, they like lose their NFT?
Initially there won't be that mechanism. Now, we have thought about that. There could be potential different competitive structures where perhaps there's like a battle royale type of structure where people who want to play high stakes can stake their NFTs, and if they lose their NFT. For the core competition, that may be a little bit too shocking for most people, especially if the NFT is quite valuable on the market, which we would expect that it will become, assuming a certain level of adoption. But we are thinking through those type of different formats. There's probably some appetite for that out there in terms of some of the competitors, but the core competition will not have this kind of like, if you lose your NFT. I think that's overly aggressive for most players. But this is also why we have to really control the supply of the NFTs. to ensure that there's always balance on the demand side relative to the supply. Brandon, I know you dropped off and joined back on.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, sweet. Sorry guys, I don't know what was happening there.
No worries. Yeah, we were just, I was just punching it over to see if you had anything else to add, but there was a couple of questions that came from the floor around rewards and how they work. Is it tokens or just NFTs? And for example, what's at risk if you lose?
I see. Okay, cool. I mean, happy to answer any other questions. In terms of adding anything, I think we covered it pretty well with.
Cool. All right. If there's no other questions, I mean, I don't know if there's any kind of concluding thoughts that you want to impart, Brandon, before we leave.
Just a quick one for me.
How
do you join the game today?
Yeah. So I mean, the best way is to join our Discord. All of the information is going to be coming through the Discord. We will be more kind of public and releasing information through our Twitter account as well. I'll send all of those official links to you, Joe, and I'll post it in the Rocket Chat so you guys have access to it. The next, call it 6 weeks, is a soft launch phase, if you want to call it that, where we're doing a lot more kind of public appearances, some story about AI Arena, but the official, call it launch, will be around November. We'll be dropping our new website, and there'll be some little mini games that we use to punctuate the launch. And after the new website drops, we'll basically go into these public beta test cycles, which is what I was describing before. Each one is its own like mini tournament, and yeah, that's where you're able to kind of earn into the new supply of or mid spot in our NFTs. And yeah, I mean, we're hoping to launch the game and start the actual kind of playing for keeps, if you will, where we're issuing tokens as rewards. That's likely, based on current projections, going to be kind of Q1 2023. So a lot of things on the go. It's going to get quite exciting very soon. So yeah, hope to see some of the Numerai community coming in and really participating in these playtests. The way that you get in, you can qualify through some of our contests and competitions that we put on, but also we will be opening up application forms for people who want to participate. And definitely Numerai community will have some preferential access to these playtests. So if you guys sign up, we will have an area that you can denote where you are being kind of referred to us from. We'll be kind of prioritizing Numerai community members because we do want to have a good cross section of different types of players in these games. Yeah, if you guys are interested, definitely get involved. I think you guys will have a lot of fun once you try it out. Yeah, I think we had the experience of a lot of people playing the early version of the game, and people get hooked after they try it out. So can't wait to see the Numerai community within AI Arena. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Any more questions? You guys have demos?
I have a comment.
Sure.
Join because you guys have the channel I created on Rocket Chat too. I know you kept mentioning the Discord, but most of the people here are hanging out on Rocket Chat a lot. So I was just going to mention that they can contact you through that as well, right?
For sure. Yeah, I'm in there. I will drop all of the official links there. So if you guys are on other socials like Twitter, etc., you can find us. I'll also drop a link to a video recording that we did that gives you a walkthrough of the researcher platform. So you guys can get an idea of what it feels like to kind of get onboarded into the researcher platform and also what the whole game looked like. The researcher platform right now is not live. because we were basically just testing a beta version of it, and that's what the video was based on. But it gives you an idea of how the whole kind of onboarding, participation, and the game loop actually works for the researchers. But the only thing that I'll add is that the game has completely changed visually, and the entire structure has changed. It's much more exciting to watch, it's something to look forward to. But I'll provide all those resources in the Rocket Chat so people have access to it.
Great stuff. Okay.
Yeah.